Welcome to this special session of the 2026 CARPA International Conference titled Inside the Top Journals, Editorial Vision, Publication Trends, and How to Publish. My name is Donny Choi. I'm very pleased and honored to moderate this great session today. This session is designed to offer a valuable opportunity for scholars, early career researchers, and doctoral students to hear directly from top journal editors in our field. Especially, we invited the editors from Public Administration Review, Public Management Review, and Public Performance and Management Review. In today's sessions, we hope to learn from our invited editors about what kinds of research their journals are currently seeking, what trends they observed in submission and publication, and what common challenges authors face during their review process. We are deeply grateful to our three distinguished editors for joining us and sharing their times and insights. Let me briefly explain the format. Each editor will give a 15-minute presentation. After the three presentation, we will have approximately 20 minutes for Q&A sessions. So now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speakers, Professor Hongtao Lee. Hongtao Lee is editor of Public Administration Review, one of our most influential and widely recognized journals in the field of PA. Please join me in welcoming Professor Hongtao Lee.
Thank you, Professor Choi, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And it's a great honor to be here again, although it's in a different city. It's always fun to be in South Korea and to meet a lot of scholars and students across the globe. It's very international. And today I'm going to talk about Public Administration Review as a journal, our editorial process, and its current status. First of all, we have a team, so we function as a team. So we do have two co-editors in chief. They are Ross Calder from Ohio State University and Catherine Willoughby from University of Georgia. Editor. Basically, I'm serving as a managing editor of the journal, so to oversee the flow from the desk reject to assigning associate editor to monitor the process, to address a lot of the issues in the review process, and then the complaints. But we do. All of us are very responsive. So many times, authors email the three of us. So whoever gets to see the email will respond first. It's not just me, but I would say it's a very efficient team. So even though we do have division of responsibilities, but Jos and Catherine, they are work very hard. They read every manuscript. They respond to every email if they see it first. So it's very spontaneous. It's not like this belongs to Hongtao, that belongs to Jos or Catherine. So whenever we see an email, one of us will respond and then CC the rest of the team. But I do have more heavy emphasis on the process. So I do communicate regularly with our associate editors. And we do have a staff member, a full-time staff member working at Ohio State. He's mainly in charge of the technical check process. So when you submit to the journal, we'll have somebody to check your manuscript for formatting and then the general fitness with the journal. We do have a very large team. We have 16 associate editors, which is a very big team, even in for any big journals in our field. The reason for that is we do see administration from a much broader perspective. In addition to the traditional public management, performance and results, and then say contracting, procurement, citizenship, democracy, and governance, and these are traditional topics in PA, we want to broaden our coverage to traditionally overlooked topics, say including budgeting, finance, nonprofit management, and then public policy, and theory building and research methods. Even though a lot of these topics were previously covered in PAR, but we try to broaden this because if you look at any public administration schools, faculty members basically do research across a broad spectrum of research topics. So what we want to make sure that our journal is reflecting the fact that our faculty members are having diverse interests. But we do want to emphasize that our core of the journal is still public management. That's something we do not want to give up. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we provide some space for other topics. Many scholars, say from the nonprofit tradition and budgeting finance tradition, are very happy recently. So because they see that we're a journal making a transition to be opening up to those areas that have been traditionally overlooked. And so that's we try to cover these areas. That's why we had to recruit a lot of associates to cover one or more topics. And we also have, one of the emphasis of the journal is that we have a heavy emphasis on the connection between practice and theory. So if you send a paper to PAR, you can easily tell it's a PAR paper versus say a JPAR paper versus say a PMR paper, but leave it to Bert to talk about PMR. But I think the key distinction is if you see a JPAR article and a PAR article, you can easily tell the difference. That's our key feature of PAR, is to emphasize that you have to have practical implication in your research. That has been the goal of ASPA, as well as it's also one of the key mission of PAR, is to serve as a bridge between practitioner and academics. So we do have an associate editor in charge of the practice speaking section, which used to be the viewpoint section, but now we require that authors of practice speaking article to have at least one co-author from the practitioner world and one co-author from academia. So the goal is to facilitate intellectual dialogue and then practical solutions to real world problems. We do have our book review editor who's also here, Professor Mimit, sitting over there. He's waving to us. And we also have associate editor Cheng Xin from Seattle University, posting our social media posts to promote our journal and then sharing our updates from our journal. We have 3 editorial assistants. One of whom was my student. She's Korean, worked as a research assistant from FSU, Yusung Kong. And so that's our team. And in terms of vision, we do want to emphasize that PAR is not only for research articles. Our stereotype for PAR article is that theory-driven empirical research, but it's only a portion of our portfolio of type of article. Even though the research article accounts for about 70% of our total articles, we do have a conceptual article section, which is if you have a pure theory, pure conceptual, and about the important frontiers of theory, and feel free to submit to us. We're not competing against PPMG. I know that PMRA have a public management and perspective on public management governance. But the reason for this is, if you look at the classic in PA, the first 50 years were only about PAR, right? So the classics were written as a conceptual piece. So we don't want to lose that. So if you have a conceptual piece, you think it's it has nowhere to go, please do submit to PAR first. And then we want to take a look at your article to see whether it has a potential to reshape our future. So that do keep us in mind for your conceptual pieces. And then we do have an early career section. that section is basically we actively seek award winners from various associations. We will email the authors to see if you can submit to us. Basically, we're targeting PhD candidates winning dissertation awards, best paper awards, and then. Then we would try to see if we can publish those. But the review process will be the same. We don't provide a special process for this section, but just that we want to provide an opportunity to advertise early career scholars, and then in cases where there's a 50-50 chance of being rejected, we want to give this junior student an opportunity to get reviews from us. And there's also a practically speaking section, which I just mentioned. It's now, we receive much more submissions to this section. It's now getting a lot of traction in the field. And we do have a book review section. So if you have any question, feel free to send an email to Professor Mehmet, and then he's here. And we welcome submissions to this section as well. In terms of our process, we run a typical review process, and we do the technical check first, and then we do the AI check as well. After you pass the initial review, the three editors, Yost, Catherine, and me, the three of us get to meet, and then we independently review and vote. So this is a very strict voting process. We independently vote. If you got 2 out of 3, or saying yes, the paper get proceed to the next step. If you got 2 reject from the 2 editors, 2 of the 3 editors, then you don't get a review. It's very simple, very simple. So many scholars want to talk to me or talk to Yost or Catherine individually. So we always say, I'm happy to take a look at it, but only got 1 vote. So many, many friends of mine, might get rejected, and the same applies to Yost's friends and Catherine's friends. The reason is that this provides more transparency and checks and balances, and also we don't overlook important pieces. For example, if one of us really have a strong opinion, so we can still push it through, but we have to demonstrate it does have a lot of implications for the field. So that leaves the burden on one of us, the collective, to have a rationality in the process. So it works very well. And then after it passes the initial check, we send it to one of the associate editors to run the review. The associate editor gets to pick the reviewers and then run the review process and come up with the recommendation. And then I'll be the person to review that decision if it's consistent with our rubric. For example, we will never accept an article with 2 rejects. And then associate editor will have discretion when there 1 reject, 2 major revision. And then if the editor rejects the article, and then they have to come up with a long rationale, I have to review that. If they're consistent, everything passes, I'll send a decision. If there is a disagreement, and I'll send it to the editors-in-chief so that we discuss it in our weekly meeting. So that we every weekly meeting we discuss these hard to decide cases one by one. Each will given like 5 to 10 minutes to go through the additional discussion, and then I will be the person to send out the collected decision. So that will be our process. And every Friday we meet, but this time we're meeting this evening, 10 p.m. So, but every week we do have a meeting of 1 hour to go through our manuscript because we have so many submissions, which I'll discuss in the next slide. And in terms of submissions, we do have a lot of submissions, but I just checked with Bert, and he might have way more than we do. But this is the same situation we're facing. We're at about 1,600 submissions per year. And the number 1 country of submissions, China, just surpassing United States. And that's just in terms of number of submissions. And then Indonesia and Korea is at number 5, about 40 submissions a year. And many Asian countries as well. And the rest of countries are from the Europe, and then Brazil, and other countries. So it's very diverse. In terms of the topic of submissions, this is covering submission topics. It's not about the outcome because you get to see the published issues by yourself. This is in terms of the popularity of scholars doing this kind of research. For example, collaborative governance, street-level bureaucracy, public value, public service motivation, and admin burden. Again, this is, again, very traditional public management. But doesn't mean that these will eventually get published. For example, admin burden is very popular. Maybe it shows up more than the frequency is showing, but it's getting very, very competitive. It's hard to for the editors to decide sometimes if we have received about 10 articles on admin burden within 1 week using similar methods. Now, it's a big challenge for the editors. And then in terms of context, we do see a wide variety in local government, artificial intelligence, budgeting, emergency management, climate, environment methods as well. Actually, we receive a lot of articles using qualitative research as a method. And in terms of changes, we do see a significant change in the submissions on collaborative governance, probably because the previous year was a low year for collaborative governance. But this year was, again, a significant rise in collaborative governance for reasons I don't know. But for the significant increase was really in the area of digital governance and AI. So digital governance and AI, basically the same field. You see about 14 times more submissions on digital governance, and I would say combining that with AI as well, and that's sort of a huge trend. But as I would say, this is a very crowded space. So if there are more people submitting on this topic, it's increasingly hard for us to judge which is good versus which is not. And basically, we're not experts on the digital governance side, but we do have experts specializing in this. But it's getting increasingly crowded. And democratic backsliding is another topic. Dr. Mary Guy's topic was on basically on the same topic. It's very popular in the U.S. And on this very topic. There are some decrease in the topic. Again, some of these have been absorbed into existing topics. For example, corruption, transparency, and maybe have been absorbed with the democratic backsliding part as well. Maybe the same people just doing slightly different topics. Machine learning is no longer fancy because of the rise of artificial intelligence, right? It was fancy for about 1.5 years and then no longer considered modern methods. In terms of review, the reviewers are being slower and slower. That's been the case in almost every places. We do make decisions quickly once reviews are complete, but it's simply that we couldn't push the reviewer hard enough to make sure that we submit their review on time. There are so many reviewers that are late for 150 days and longer. So most of the PAR submissions, you get a decision within 2 months. But there are like 10% of articles that can be prolonged for a long period of time, even though we're constantly reminding the reviewer. So to the point that if we are delayed for more than 4 months, the editors will have to read and make a decision by ourselves. So it's very much a challenge for a very minority of manuscript, but those are the ones that's causing a lot of inquiries from the authors. And our acceptance rate last year was 9%, and this year I think it's going to be like 5 to 6% or maybe lower. One reason was the increase in submission. The other reason was that we tend to be more strict in the process as well. And in terms of full text reviews, our journal gets increase in full text reviews from all over the globe, and including many countries that traditionally have been overlooked, in Peru, Vietnam, and Jordan. So we do have a broad readership. And our work has been widely cited by federal government, and including the president's speech, as well as the government report. We recently published a few country studies focusing on specific countries, their administration practice. So that's one of our initiative to push forward the field by emphasizing understudied countries So one of the associates, Kim Maloney, is the person heavily involved in this initiative. We also have 7 articles on practice speaking published in last year. They're open access for at least 1 month to reduce the paywall for practitioners. So one of the issues that we received was the practitioners, they don't subscribe to Wiley or any library for electronic resources. So we make this free for 1 month. We're pushing for 3 months, but again, negotiating with the publisher is a challenge. But we try our best to make it more accessible to different communities of audience. We do have conceptual pieces published last year, six conceptual pieces. So if you do have conceptual pieces, please do submit to us. We recently we have a democracy symposium organized by Chris Kaliba and Rich Callahan. This is on democratic backsliding. We recently accepted a few articles, including the one by Dr. Yan Tang on the topic of civic engagement. The most recent update is that we do have a symposium forthcoming. The deadline is October the 1st. And so it's on the topic of ethics in government and nonprofit organizations. It's organized by Rob Christensen and his colleagues. It's jointly by 2 journals. So you get to submit to the 2 to Rob Christensen and his co-authors, his team, so that if it's a better fit for MVSQ, it will be routed to MVSQ. If it's better fit for PAR, it will be routed to us. And it's fully managed by Rob Christensen and Travis Rotto on the PAR side. And it does also show that our good relationship with PMRA and JPART, right? So I think the journals, we're forming an ecological system. We're not competing. We're not, thinking of this as a zero-sum game. We're a collective trying to provide public goods. So this is a proposal from Rob, and he thinks this is a good topic. We said just go ahead and do it. I think it's important for PA to address ethics in government. And a little bit update. I do have like 10 seconds. We are transitioning into a research exchange in early November. So this is a new system and provided by Wiley. And there was some period of time that we have been very slow, simply because there's a new system. It's a lot of it's a steep learning curve for us. It's very hard at the beginning, but now we have ironed out all the technical challenges. Everything should be very smooth from now on. But even though it's still a new system, so keep in mind it's not as it's not as smooth as before. I would say, but I think it's over the long term, maybe in a year or 2, it will get better. But I think it's still a new system, experiencing a lot of glitches. So if you do see your manuscript get stuck somewhere, just let me know. Send me an email. I'm happy to take a look at it and see where it is, it's located. So I'll find out. But don't worry too much. So we're still using Editorial Manager. There are still 70 manuscripts under R&R in that old system. So once all these manuscripts have been revised or rejected or accepted, and we will get rid of the Editorial Manager in about a year from now. All right, thank you very much. Any questions, feel free to email me or Jos or Catherine. We're happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Hong Tao-Yi, for your insightful presentation. It gives us a very helpful sense of the parts, the editorial directions. Please let me turn to the second presentation. Our second presenter is Professor Bert Georgi, the editor of Public Management Review. As many of us know, as all of us know, PMR is also the one of the leading journals in our field. Please please join me in welcoming our second presenter, Professor Bert Georgi.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. I still feel the Korean barbecue from yesterday, so if I act strange, it's because of that, right? I'm very honored to talk to all of you today about Public Management Review, one of the journals that I have published in extensively myself. I can no longer do that because I'm now co-editor-in-chief, so that's a downside. And what I'm hoping to show you is the vision of PMR, but also kind of some direction for especially early career scholars. Okay, some of the ideas that I have. Now, disclaimer, these are some of my ideas, so if something is bad, it's not Stephen Osborne's fault, it's totally up to me. So the editorial team of Public Management Review, we have two co-editors-in-chief, and actually Stephen Osborne from the University of Edinburgh was the founder of Public Management Review. He created the journal about the 2000s, right, in quite a visionary move, and I joined the editor-in-chiefship in September. So we used to have only one editor-in-chief, but actually Stephen last year, he got sick, and I just transitioned. So before I was editor at PAR for 3 years. So I said, yes, no more editorship after 3 years. And then they asked me to take over for Stephen. And then we kind of realized that we needed a dual role, right? You also see our associate editors. So we have quite a big list. There's actually one Korean name there. I think Han is Han. I can see him sitting there. Yes, he's waving. He asked me not to point him out, but I'm still doing it. So we have a very international editorial board. That's something I want to emphasize, and I'll say a bit more about that as I discuss our journal. So what is the editorial vision of PMR? PMR is basically kind of like the child of management and public administration, right? So we are actually, as a journal, we are indexed in both management and PA. So that's a very important starting point to think about our journal, right? If you're more doing political science and PA, then maybe a journal like governance could be a good idea. If you focus on some broader topics, which was also highlighted before, maybe PAR is a good idea, but we are really a public management journal. That is core to our DNA, right? What's interesting about Public Management Review is that it actually emerged in the early 2000s as a response to new public management, right? So what we were seeing was that so many things were happening that were messing up the public sector because they were incorporating business practices and business schools' ideas. So the reaction was, well, maybe we need a new sort of management, a public management. And this is really the philosophy behind our journal, right? And you'll see that in the topics that we focus on as well, right? We need a management specifically for the public sector at large. We need a public management. The journal has also grown hand in hand with IRSPM. How many of you have heard of IRSPM? Some of you, okay. So the International Research Society for Public Management, which was one of the major public management conferences. Next year it will be in Norway, which is very cold, but very nice. And actually IRSPM was also founded by Stephen Osborne. So those two kind of go hand in hand in the vision to establish this public management. So as IRSPM has grown, so has PMR. Or as PMR has grown, so has IRSPM. When you think about the type of papers that we are looking for, we want to see significant contributions to public management theory and research. That is really the main stick that we use to judge papers, right? When we look at them, we need to see a contribution to public management theory and research. It doesn't mean we don't care about practice, right? But we are really focused on theory and research, and especially, again, public management. So if you submit a paper to us and you talk about how you contribute to sociological theory or to specific other theories, we're not going to be too happy, right? We want to see a public management connection. One of the big things that Public Management Review has led, and again, be mindful, we're just 25 years old. We're still a baby in terms of journal ages. I think PAR is 80, 90 years old. I think PA is over 100 years old, so we're quite young. But we really were among the journals introducing this concept of new public governance, right? Which especially focuses on inter-organizational relations, networking, collaborative governance. All those ideas are tied to the new public governance movement. And one of the leading papers in PMR was actually about that concept, right? So which topics will you see in PMR? There's many, but I kind of try to narrow it down to some of the core topics that we publish about. Innovation. So Richard Walker, one of our associate editors, writes a lot about innovation. Actually, Mehmet is also one of our associate editors, also focusing on innovation. So PMR has really been one of the journals for studies about public sector innovation, right? Co-production. We're probably most known for our co-production articles. Every week, I'm sifting through so many co-production articles, so many, and all use survey experiments, so blows my head. But okay, co-production is clearly an important theme in our journal. Strategic management, which is my field, right? So this is why I've published in PMR quite a lot. Networks, which is very much the Dutch school. People like Erik Hans Kleen, Joop Koppejans, so the Erasmus school. And also more recently, digital governance. Some of our most cited papers in the past years have focused on digital governance. Now, there are other topics, right? But be mindful, again, whatever you write about for PMR, it needs to have public management implications. That is vital. So yes, we have papers about AI governance. Yes, we have papers about admin burden, red tape, nonprofits, but they should have implications for public management theory and research. That's really, really crucial for our journal. Okay, we have grown like crazy, right? Even though we're only 25 years old, I emphasize that again. For the past, I would say, almost decade, we have been typically among the top journals in PA. And what you can see here is the trend in downloads. Last year, PMR went above 1.1 million downloads. What the hell? We're public management, right? So that's pretty cool, you know. So, and you can see, compared to 2021, we almost doubled. And likely what we're seeing now is that trend will continue. So clearly people are reading our work. Now, there are only 2 journals, we checked this, that have gone above 1 million downloads in PA. That's actually PAR and PMR. So this is a number which is quite extensive. We should also kind of be a little bit relative, because I also looked it up for Strategic Management Journal. They have 2.4 million. So, okay, we're getting there, right? We're getting there. This year, we are trending to go above 2,000 submissions. Even though you could say public management is quite niche, one of the things that we're seeing is that actually people from other fields focus on public management as well, and they would typically go to public management review, right? Which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. Our desk reject is going up quite extensively. I think at the moment we are close to 75% that gets desk rejected. That's a lot of work because it's Steven and me doing it. When we desk reject, we will always tell you why. So we will provide comments explaining why we're desk rejecting, right? You may disagree, that's fine, right? But we will try to do that. It's a lot of work, but we keep on doing it. The reason why our desk reject is going up so much is also simply because we have a limited reviewers pool and we cannot continue to put stress on that pool. So we have to be a lot more selective, right? Again, if you get desk rejected, we try to recommend another journal that could fit your paper, and we try to give at least some comments for you to work with in progressing further, okay? Acceptance rates, last year they were 10%. This year they're also likely to go around 6 to 7%. We're not happy with that, right? PMR, we always strived for an acceptance rate of about 15%. That was part of the vision of the journal because we want to give a platform for people to publish. But because of the increase in submissions, everything, that's kind of a side effect of that, right? I think over time that may stabilize, but now you see the acceptance rates going down. Now, be mindful, 80% about that gets desk rejected. So once you move beyond the desk reject, your chances are actually not that bad when you think about it, okay? What I also saw, and I saw this morning, is that in terms of the number of submissions, Korea is actually ranked 4th. So the first one, similar, is China. The second one is the US. The third one is the UK. And number 4 for us is Korea. So keep on sending us your stuff, right? We'll certainly look at it. Okay, I was also asked to say something about emerging themes and methods. Some things that we are seeing, not necessarily already published at scale now, but some things that we really believe will be the future of PMR as well. And one thing I want to emphasize, and this is the idea certainly of Stephen and me, we look at public management as a people-based science, a human-centric science. And in the trends that we're seeing, we're actually seeing people go back to that. So a lot of work is focusing now on practice theory, which is basically trying to understand how people do things. How are public organizations implementing agile? How are they applying design thinking? How are they doing strategy? How are they doing collaborative governance? So attention to practice and activity theory, that is really something that I expect to see even more. And I also find it to be very interesting, right? Because it kind of helps to understand how people actually do something. What we're also seeing likely more is interdisciplinary work. Now that can sometimes be a struggle, right? We are a public management journal. We expect to see public management contributions. But we do see people moving in from fields like psychology, neuroscience, also the broader management fields, urban planning, who are kind of working on public management topics. So that's likely to increase more. And we do encourage it, but again, we are looking for public management contributions, right? What's really important, comparative research. We're dying to see that, right? Compare. Don't only focus on your own country context. No, be bold and dare to compare between settings. You run an experiment in Hong Kong, run it too in London or New York and see what the findings show. That's something we're doing at CDU, by the way. Connecting labs, do experiments all over the world and then comparing findings. So comparative research is something all PA journals love and certainly something that we are also craving for to see more. Mixed and multi-method approaches. Yes, that as well. You know, stop only running regressions. Stop only doing one method. Combine methods to showcase a strong contribution to theory. This is something that we have called for a long time. And finally, some people are picking up on it. Right? So I think especially as an early career scholar, you have to stand out. Adopting a mixed or a multi-method approach is a way to stand out. Right? It's not easy, but you can do it. More longitudinal and spatial approaches, that's also something we're seeing. So accounting for time, lots of longitudinal case studies, for instance, building theory, but also panel data analysis, spatial analyses to kind of understand the role of time and space in public management. And then one very big thing is the role of scale. So I mentioned public management review is in line with this new public governance ID. So one very big thing that we're working on is basically how do you use public management to tackle the big issues? Climate change, poverty, which don't know boundaries, right? So we are working with several people to kind of build some more insights into problems that are not just within an organization, but are global, cross boundaries, cross organizations. Okay, so those are some emerging themes and methods. We can talk more about that, don't worry. I only had 15 minutes, so let me conclude with some practical advice. If you submit to PMR, you should be writing a public management paper, right? So that basically means if it's not a public management paper, go elsewhere. There's so many great journals out there. We are spoiled, right? And indeed, the ecosystem is fantastic. If you focus more on regulation, there's a great journal that's edited by my colleague, Nicole, Regulation and Governance, right? If you're focusing a bit more on political science, like I said, maybe governance is a good idea. So don't only focus too much on PMR, right? If you're going for us, it should be a public management paper. One big thing, and this is the main reason why we desk reject, you have to spell out your contributions to public management theory and research. So many people forget about it. You need to write it in the introduction, and you need to get back to it in the discussion. If we don't see that, that's an easy desk project. Make our life easier. Spell out your contributions. How do you contribute to public management theory and research? If that's not part of your introduction and discussion, that's not a good sign, right? Of course, do you engage with dialogues and debates in PMR, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that we expect all of your references to be from PMR. But if you're submitting to PMR and all your references are coming from political science or pure management, well, that's an indication that you're not really engaging with our fields. We expect you to know the literature through and through when you submit to our journal, right? That is really vital. Also, internationalize, right? Even though you use evidence from Korea, Public Management Review is an international journal. We're not an American journal. We're not a European journal. We are an international journal. So we want to see international implications. And don't tell me you can't do it, okay? I come from Belgium, a very small country. And actually, most of my data has been from Flanders, a region in Belgium. No one cares about Flanders, right? Well, I do. But I've published in PMR with that data. I've published in PAR with that data. So you have to be able to draw international lessons. That is vital. Also, make sure your context and your data collection are clear. Many people think, oh, it's clear enough. But when I go through a paper for Desk Reject, if it's not clear, where is the data coming from, it's not 100% robust, that's a Desk Reject, right? So these are just some lessons that hopefully you can draw on. If I can conclude with one thing, I know AI is here. It kind of scares me a little bit sometimes. I don't use it, right? I don't use it at all still. But I really see the importance of reading. Don't just do a synthesis using AI. Read yourself. I think the superpower in the future will be for people who can write papers without AI. If you can do that, that means you followed the process, you read the literature, you understand what's going on, and read. All my PhD students have to start with a literature review. So reading is a vital way to actually get to understand a journal, and in doing so, also publish in it. Let me just say, again, there are no shortcuts, right? So if you think about doing a way to manipulate, to get there faster, it does not work. You need to put in the time. You need the hard work. You need to read, work, submit, get rejected, learn, and evolve from that. That's how you become a great scholar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bert Georgi, for your passionate presentation. It brings us to a very joyful journey to explore the world of PMR. I'm appreciating, yeah. Okay, let me introduce the third presenters. Our third presenter is Professor Kai-Feng Yang, editor of Public Performance and Management Review. PPMR has been a top journal, particularly for performance management scholarships. Personally, when I was in my doctoral program, Professor Kai-Feng Yang taught the public management seminar, and he was very strict. So I'm very nervous to take his lecture again. So please, you guys feel the same tension today. Okay. Please join me in welcoming the Professor Hong Dao-ri. I'm sorry, the Kai-Feng Yang. Yeah. I'm so nervous.
So I promise it's not a lecture. So it's a very light conversation. And And also, I'm lucky to follow Hong Tao and George because I won't go through some typical processes of reviewing. So I'm going to just give you some general comments. I have been editor for many years. I became managing editor of PPMR 2008, and then became the editor-in-chief a number of years later. I also created another Chinese journals, right? So um, just give some general observations of this. But quickly about a PPMR created in 1975, so it's about 50 years old between PAR and PMR. We are associated with the ASPA's section on public performance and management. So it's a smaller scale. We are indexed about 16 years ago. This year we have this is our new citation factor. Last year, our submission is about 900, and this year we are predicting about 1,000 as well. Uh, article downloads, as you can see, from very different countries. Submission rate, actually, it's slightly different. Korea is number 3 for us. So number 1, no surprise, China. Number 2, United States. Number 3, actually, is South Korea. What we do, of course, we advance in theory and practice that help improve public performance. So you must advance theories, theoretical contribution, very important, but we also sometimes focus on techniques in public management. We are interested in the comparison between public and private management theories. A strong interest, of course, in performance, measurement, evidence, and effectiveness. And especially, we emphasize evidence that inform practice. This is very different. We sent a reviewer guide to our reviewers, and one of the questions is actually, do you see the impact on practice? Do the authors offer meaningful advice to practitioners? So we're really concerned with that. In the past, we are considered a specialty journal. It's only about performance measurement, but gradually we have changed. So it's more general. It's also interdisciplinary. Some of you know I was a dean of interdisciplinary studies, so I love interdisciplinary studies. But I know sometimes it's difficult to get published when you write that way. So when I assign articles to associate editors, sometimes, okay, this is really interdisciplinary. So I will do it myself. Or I will send a special letter to the associate editor, say, this is very different from our typical submission, but maybe you need to give more patience and give extra care about this. We also welcome international submissions a lot, especially meaningful international comparisons, right? So that's similar across journals. As I said, we do emphasize scholarship and practice, the practical relevance. We want to make the bridge. To give you example, we still publish articles submitted by federal government managers, employees. For example, when the Modernization Act was passed at U.S. federal government, so U.S. Federal official actually wrote a report on the most recent developments. It's not really theory informed based, but when I look at it, okay, this is the most recent developments in federal performance management. I said, well, we pushed a little bit and add more theory, right? But I think it just in terms of the empirical observations, it's so timely, so important. We decided to publish, right? So we do want to emphasize this, but also just to think about it. This is a section journal, public performance section. Some of the section officers or members, they are practitioners, right? So when you report to them, they ask, really, do you actually connected with us. So we have to show that, yes, we publish articles that really connected. So every year, for example, we have a symposium at ASPA conference. So in that symposium, we invite practitioners to be in the audience as well. So they will provide additional input and comments. So this is really important to us. I was asked to talk about publication trends in terms of topics. I don't really like this assignment because sometimes the statistics only reflect reality, doesn't reflect what we want, what we desire, right? To me, topic itself is not an issue. But we do see a significant increase in terms of digital governance and artificial intelligence. But performance management, it's flat. That's understandable. Motivation, behavior, that type of flat. But equity, diversity, inclusion, social justice, we do see increase. Collaborative governance for us, actually, it's flat. Nonprofit partnerships flat, but crisis resilience, those are increase. Co-production service delivery, that's also increase. Accountability, that's one of our specialty areas as well. In terms of methods, I would say that methods matter, but research design matters more. So we are very pluralistic in terms of methods. We actually don't care what type of methods you use, as long as you answer your question very well. So we don't care, but we do see survey experiments increase. Not necessarily a good thing. I complained about it at the ASPA conference. Also increase in terms of administrative data analysis. This is because of the increasing use of machine learning and AI. Panel data, mixed methods, those are pretty flat. But meta-analysis, yes, we see increase. But I say research design matters more because we want to see strong identification, appropriate design, and evidence contribution alignment. Sometimes we don't see that alignment. That matters a lot. International submissions, very welcome. We believe that global public management issues seeking collaborative solutions. A lot of public management issues, George mentioned climate, those are really, you need international collaboration for solutions. As a result, your research should be collaborative. We also believe that even we are US-based journals, we have to learn from Korea, from China. As yesterday, that the keynote speaker from Kappa say that now is the Korea's time to present Korean stories to the world to build the key administration KPA, right? But I think that we want that type of stories to be told to the international audience. We also believe that doing international comparatives just can build better theories. All those theories built based on simply United States experience, I don't think that's good theories because it only applies to US. It doesn't explain other parts of the world. So I think it's just better theories. We do have associate editor Jay Meng. It's our associate editor. There are several Korean faculty members who are on our editorial board. We also have a lot of Korean reviewers, of course. We used to have our commitment. We say that for the international submissions, we say we will deal with the language issues for you. But now that's not an issue anymore because everybody uses AI, and so language is not an issue. But we are committed to providing a development role, which means if you pass the first screening review, if you are a junior scholar, if you're an international scholar, we say, okay, our role is to help you. It's not a simple judgment, 0-1, yes or no. It's to help you develop into a mature scholar. So we do see our role in that direction. So we provide sometimes additional support to junior scholars and international scholars. we also want to make good choice of reviewers. That's very important to international authors. And sometimes we, of course, we promise to deal with personal preferences and values. This is less an issue for Korean authors, more of an issue for Chinese authors because of the system difference, because of how you look at issues, how to define issues, and different values. We want to be neutral. We want to be helpful in that regard. There, of course, author challenges in the past. I mentioned language. Well, um, grammar no longer an issue, but still writing has some problems as well for international submissions. Sometimes, if I'm dealing with a submission, the author from Asia stated that I drafted and edited manuscript with AI. We said, what? You drafted your manuscript with AI? Which means the first round of writing is done by AI. But then there was no grammar issues. But when you read it, it doesn't really make sense, right? So still sometimes it's not the grammar issue, but it's sometimes it's a combination of AI and other things. But also we are facing sometimes because we have different backgrounds, you do have conceptual and measurement equivalence. Even, let's say George said, you do international comparisons, you do the same experiments in China, Korea, Taiwan, and New York. The same term may mean very different things in different cultural contexts. So that's a huge issue across culture. It's measurement equivalence, right? I remember doing public service motivation international comparisons. But when you talk about what politics mean, what public service mean, that's very, very different. The original term politics is dirty, that type of measurement. I mean, how do you really compare, right? So this is a challenge in terms of the measurement equivalence. But also sometimes in terms of the data and access. I'm looking at, for example, Chinese authors. When we look at those, whether you trust the data, that's a huge issue. And also there's country experiences versus a general framework. That's always a challenge. That's what George mentioned, international lessons. But here is really general theoretical contribution. So more generally, I think not only for international authors, but general authors is that most rejected manuscripts struggle with unclear contribution. The single most important factor is contribution. It's just not clear. Often authors explain what they studied, but not why the study advanced knowledge. That's one issue. Sometimes they apply existing models to new contexts without explaining what's learned beyond the replication itself. So that's another reason. And another is make broader theoretical or policy claims that exceed what the data can support, which means misalignment between the claim and the data. So that's a huge issue. Emerging future research frontiers, we do see AI, data, and digital governance. That's very, very important. Another one is performance and resilience in complex governance systems. We increasingly realize that in the past we focus on a single organization, but this is not only about multi-organizations. This is just very complex systems, governance systems, and you have to sometimes go beyond the typical theory and methods. The third one for us is equity and performance. As a matter of fact, for next year's ASP conference, our symposium will be on this equity and performance. Some of you know we just held the Social Equity Leadership Conference in the United States. So we're actually talking to different scholars, but also a lot of practitioners in government. Maybe equity is not a popular term in US governments right now, but there are still local and state governments who practice this issue every day. So we want to look at this issue. There are also, what I say, we want to see more articles that can integrate macro, meso, and micro levels. George talked about for example, meso organization and macro, and to study micro issues, climate change. We encourage that type, but we also want to encourage that in order for you to really improve your organizational and individual level analysis, we want you to place into a policy context. Your policy context, the culture context has to be very clear. We want to understand your public service motivation, but not in general terms. We want to know a specific macro phenomena, how that might change your public service motivation, right? We want to understand how the big changes, societal changes in Korea, how that actually affect meso and micro level phenomena. We want meaningful international comparisons. A lot of times the international comparisons to me are not meaningful, doesn't make sense, or they're just, I don't believe the results. And another one is computational public administration, not necessarily survey experiments, but whether you can use the new technology to get to some of the data that in the past we could not use. I think that I have seen a lot of new innovations in that area. Practical advice for authors. Chinese people may know who this is. This is the one of the most important scientists in China, modern Chinese history. It's Chen Xuesong. It's the most important scientist. He, of course, graduated from U.S. Okay, this is a long, long time ago. He has a very famous saying, saying that you have to have bold conjectures, but you have to prove it carefully, which means your hypothesis gotta be bold, right? Your theory gotta be bold, but then your testing of a hypothesis should be very, very careful and being scientific. I realized this because when I visited Shanghai, there's a museum about him. When I look at this sentence, I real well, I know this sentence well being in high school, but sometimes I forgot about this. I mean, for those natural science, they will say, what is your real contribution, bold contribution? And then for social science, sometimes we just forgot that indeed, you look at some of the hypotheses, real, they're not interesting, they're not exciting, they're not bold, they're not really advancing the frontier. And we just lose that type of vision. So I think that's why I think that a lot of times we talk contribution not clear, as I think is because of this mindset. So always start with the contribution. I wrote down two practical advices here. That's normally when I teach my doctoral students. First, don't say no research has been done on this. That's not a good reason. No research has been done, maybe because that's unimportant. It's irrelevant. So that's not a good justification. Another sentence I hate is little research has been done. You need to tell me how many. Okay, 3 articles has been published by George. That's it. Then I know 3 have been published. And you have to tell me how you are going to extend George's 3 articles. So don't tell me just, okay, little is being done. You gotta be specific on the frontier. So frame broadly. So I'm a little bit different from George. I said, if you are saying, I'm not really contributing to a narrow public management theory, fine. You're saying I'm contributing to a theory that applies to sociology, political science. Okay, I can live with that. So, but match your claim with evidence. Take practice seriously. Demonstrate faith. Don't overuse or abuse AI. And finally, final words. I give you a picture of the editors, especially I think George and myself or Hong Tao, because just think about it. I'm a dean. I still do the screening review, maybe once or twice a week, a lot of times during the weekend. Think about at night. Every week I read maybe 30, 40 articles. I make quick decisions, whether that's a rejection, whether I send to which associate editor. So you have to help me, because otherwise it's very exhausting. Let's say within 1 hour, you read like 10 survey experiments, similar and similar issues. You get really tired and sort of anyway, very upset, right, to your spring. So you gotta show that my submission is really different. I got something interesting to tell you. There's something innovative about my theory, a surprise in you, a new mechanism or a meaningful challenge to existing theory. That's something I look for, right? I've been doing this for 18 years. So within 5 minutes, I look quickly through. Well, there's nothing new. It's probably no desk rejection. So um, you have to help us to help you. That's basically what I'm saying. I think I already used too much time. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Kai-Feng Yang, for your thoughtful presentation. Your emphasis on a bold hypothesis building reminded me of the lesson you gave us in your logic of inquiry. You always said that don't do research because there is no research, but I should confess that I have done that, so I'm still at it. Yeah. Okay. Now we had heard from three distinguished professors. Each presenters have given us a very different but complementary perspectives on how to publish and what we should research. So now we have about 10 minutes. So I would like to open the floor to questions from audiences. So if you have any questions to our three distinguished editors, please feel free to ask it. I'm sorry, we don't have the remote. Oh, we have.
C. Thank you all for your insightful presentations. I'm Jungmin Huang, master student at Graduate School of Public Administration, Seoul National University. My question is that for all three of you, as a graduate student, I would like to ask, based on your editorial experience, what is the most common weakness you see in otherwise promising submissions, and what advice would you give to graduate students seeking to improve their work? Thank you.
So maybe I will just just respond from the microphone. So I think actually one of the biggest weaknesses that I see, especially with graduate students submitting, is that they don't know the classics. So when you are submitting a paper, that's why you say read. It's not just enough to know what has been written about a subject recently. You also have to be aware of the classics surrounding a topic. Right? And that's often neglected. And then you can see if they go to peer review, some people will challenge their insights into the fields, and that becomes a problem. So that's why doing a thorough literature review and also understanding classical sources, which are often in books, not in our journals, but in books, is really, really important as a graduate student. Thank you. Good luck.
I consider that those are old boards, right? So what's the difference between those old boards and graduate students? Is really they are better at storytelling. With the same statistical results, professors, they can tell a better story. They frame it in a different way. They make connection to bigger issues in the literature, and that's the storytelling, right? So I think nowadays graduate students, you are better in statistical methods. You actually have better data techniques. Sometimes it's far more advanced. but the difference is storytelling. So I agree with George that those professors probably they read more, they have more experience. Yeah, not because they work harder, because we live longer, so we read more, we know more, and of course we frame in a different way. Especially one more point is that sometimes if you are reading specifically about that hypothesis, those two variable relationships, then in theorizing you talk about it. In discussion, you have nothing else to add. You repeat the theory section, which is very repetitive. You read because every variable, including control variable in your model, you need to know the literature about that variable and how that is connected. Then with any statistical finding, you are able to tell a story. Sometimes it's the main story, sometimes it's a side story, but anyway, you always have interesting story to tell. That's
I think a few suggestions. One is I echo what Bert and what Dr. Kevin Young was saying, is that our young students tend to place too much emphasis on methods. That's what mostly young students are good at. And when I was a doctoral student, I just pay too much attention to methods. But methods is not the full story. So make sure you're aware of that. It's more about the skills of writing, and then fine tune the question, like Professor Young was saying. Another thing is, do remember that you will submit an article to a journal, and getting rejected is the norm instead of um, an exception. So be prepared to get rejected, but you always have to learn from that experience and get better every time. So I think I still get regularly rejected by journals. So it's not, but you have to get stronger every time and learn from the mistakes, and then fine tune your question, fine tune your writing, and then so that you can eventually get it published in somewhere. Sometimes it's good to target top journal versus other journals, but always it's good to build a confidence over time. So I would say just keep doing your work, and then this, if you're committed to the field, you're committed to the process. All right.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Hyunbin Kim, the MPA student in Seoul National University. First of all, thank you for your always the great presentation. My question is that um, how can I? My simple question is how can I use AI wisely when I write my own manuscript? Because many journals, like top journals like JPERT and or PAR, publish emphasize the AI ethics, but they don't say how to use the AI wisely. Like for like junior scholars like me or other colleagues. So I just want to ask, as an editor, what is your advice? How researchers use AI wisely and helpful? Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So yeah, we're just laughing. So I would say you have a presumption that you have to use AI. So I talked to my wife. She's from arts education. That arts community has been totally destroyed by AI. So because no one, the artists used to take them a lot of time to come up with the idea, but now AI can randomly generate a lot of ideas. So her colleagues telling the student, we have a brain, use your brain, right? So we're a human being. The brain is your key function. But anyway, I know that we cannot avoid AI now. But the key issue is that AI helps you with a lot of things, but there's a ethical boundary between proper use versus unethical use. I probably cannot tell you the best use, but I say there's an improper use of AI. For example, there's sometimes we see hallucination. You know the word hallucination? That's very simple mistakes committed by authors with a wrong reference. If we see multiple wrong references, that's a clear indication that you have used AI in the wrong way. That can lead to you being listed as a blacklist, right? And then we don't punish authors. I try to give the authors benefit of doubt, but we'll still have to reject the manuscript if we see indication that there's a clear signal of AI use. But you don't want to leave the impression to the editor that you use AI in the wrong way. I would say that most journal will have the general advice that you use AI for polishing is fine, but you don't use it to generate ideas. And especially what Dr. Yang was saying, the generating literature reviews. And then that's just a lot of things that we're dealing with, and especially that for the journal with a huge submission, and the volume itself is a big problem for us. So we don't really suggest people using this. It's actually not good for our industry. It's going to collapse if everybody's generating like 15 articles and 30 articles a year, and then this academia is not going to exist anymore. But maybe we will rebuild from this. But now the model, we're at extreme in our limit. So I was joking with Bert about the question that Professor Choi is raising. What's the future? I was saying don't have time to think about future. I'm just thinking about now. I need to get to my manuscript, finish my task, and make sure the journal is functioning. So I would say, please, try not to use it too much. I mean, or if we cannot avoid it, but I would say just try to calm down, focus on what you're interested in, read it, come up with a novel question, and then take your time in writing the paper. Use your heart, use your brain. All right. Okay. I mean, that's a suggestion for me as well. I'm not suggesting to you as a person, suggesting to everybody. That's crucial for this modern time.
Yes, I fully agree, and I think the AI policy that we have is quite straightforward. So you can use it to polish language, but not to generate content. If we discover an AI written paper and rediscover it, we get really pissed off because we get so many submissions, right? So the image of the editor sitting there with a pile of papers, if that happens, and we know who you are, and that's not good. Right? So be very careful with going very far beyond polishing language. Now, beyond that remark, I want to say one thing which I hope will trigger some reflection. There was a recent special issue in a journal called Strategy Science about AI and strategy, right? And one of the conclusions was that AI cannot do strategy for reasons of homogeneity. So AI will result in similar ideas across the board. So when you're trying to strategize, you want to do something new, innovate, new ideas, AI is not good at that. That's the same thing I have with our fields. AI papers will not be impactful. You want to be the next Jim Perry, you want to be the next big name John Bryson, you won't do it with submitting AI written papers. You do it through your hard work, thinking, reflecting, trying, adapting, right? And again, I get the language polishing, and for me that's fine. But I wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that you use AI beyond that for research, especially when it generates content, right? It can be a sparings partner, that's something different, but to generate content, I would not recommend it. You have to do the hard work. We recently had a top AI scholar who came to CityU. He gave a talk about AI and the humanities. And one of the things that he said, and I thought it was really interesting, our dean of School of Environment was there, a very famous climate scientist, Benjamin Horton. And we were talking about what do we expect from our PhD students. And all of a sudden, this very famous climate scientist told me, well, now all my students have to do literature reviews again as a first step, and themselves, not using AI. It's like, well, we've been doing that for decades, but okay. But the reason why is exactly because AI is resulting in people not reading, not going through it, checking references, understanding how people write, building that capacity for potential greatness, right? And I think you don't just want to publish. Of course, you want to publish, but you want to have impact, right? You want to be known. You want to create something, change something. You won't do that by a click on the machine and just churning out papers. That won't happen, right? You need to do the dirty work.
I use AI because all the deans at Rutgers New York use AI because the university subscribe different AI tools. So it's embedded in our Outlook because we have to reply hundreds of emails every day. So AI help replying those emails. I found that very helpful. Initially, I didn't do it. Another dean said, well, you must do that. That helps greatly. So I started 3 months ago, indeed saving me a lot of time. But in terms of writing papers, I agree with the two other editors. But I would say that last semester in our doctor program, so the faculty start to change how they teach doctoral students. This is how we do it. We give them a topic. We ask the doctoral student to talk to AI and to generate something. And then we come together and talk about the answer you get may not be right. So I did it myself with a visiting scholar, wrote a draft, asked me to review, claiming to make a great theoretical contribution. I look at it, a new theory. So I said, well, this is written by AI, right? Yes. Yeah, I used the AI. So I put into the, we sat together. I upload the file. I said, is this a theory, a big theoretic contribution? Yeah, I said, yes, it's a great contribution. I said, okay. Then I start to ask questions. I said, well, there seems to be another side of this. I commented. And the AI response was, you are right. This needs to be adjusted. Give me another version. I told the students. Now I remember there's another line of literature may be relevant. Let me type in that line of literature. AI said, oh, you are right. We missed that line of literature. Now I give you a new version. So we sat there for half an hour. He got to know, oh, if you do not know the literature at all, the version AI gives you, it's really garbage. But you have to know the literature very well to use the AI very well to get to the type of manuscript you want. So AI is a great tool, but you have to know how to use it. You have to have your own brain. Otherwise, it's going to, cheat on you. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time. However, fortunately, we'll have another 15 minutes round the table with our grade 3 editors. So, on behalf of CAPA, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Kai-Fang Yang, Professor Hong Tao Yi, and Professor Bert Georgi for sharing your invaluable time and expertise. Please join me once again in thanking our 3 distinguished editors with our gratitudes. Thank you very much. And again, we will have another 15-minute round table with a short break.